Hello, everyone. Welcome to B2BC's event, How to Stand Out and Land Your Next Job. My name is Chris Russo. I'm a BC alum, class of 2019, and I'm also the president and founder of the Boston College Media Alumni Network, which is an independent alumni affinity group connecting BC alumni in media, communications, and marketing. Thanks so much to everybody who's joined us tonight for this event. You know, it's no secret, we're in a really tough job market right now. There's a lot going on in this world, and some of us are feeling kind of burnt out in our job and internship search. We feel like we've been doing everything that we can do and we're just not getting the results that we want to get. Or you might be on the other side of the spectrum. Maybe you don't know what you want to do, or you don't know what to do, and you're feeling stuck. So tonight's event will be a really great opportunity to hear from two career coaching experts who will share what you should be doing right now to best position yourself for your next job and land that interview. And I gotta say, you're already doing the right thing by being with us here tonight. That's half the battle. You're showing up and you're arming yourself with the tools that you need to succeed in your job search. Just a quick note about the format of tonight's event. Please utilize Zoom's chat function to ask questions throughout the entire event. We'll be on for just about 35 minutes, which goes faster than you think. So please send your questions as you have them, and I'll be keeping an eye on the chat and making sure that your questions get answered. So now I'd like to welcome our two guests this evening. First is Karen Elders. Karen is a BC grad, a professional career coach, and the co-founder of Launch Career Strategies. She spent over 10 years as a recruiter, placing junior to senior level executives in sales, business development, and marketing roles. And she also has over 10 years of agency and sales experience in the advertising and digital media spaces. Also with us tonight is Elyse Spalding. Elyse is a professional career coach and the other half of Launch Career Strategies. She's also the founder and president of Spalding Associates and has spent over 24 years leading Spalding's executive search services. She's also spent over 10 years in the advertising industry, and fun fact, was a founding member of the ad sales team at the Food Network. That's fun. So Karen and Elyse, so excited to have you here with us tonight, and thank you for joining us for this insightful conversation.
Thank you so much. So happy to be here.
So let's just start off right at the top. What's on all of our minds right now? It's a really competitive job market. So what's your advice for how do you stand out from the other applicants in the pool and really get your resume to the top of the pile?
And thank you again, everybody that's on this. It's really exciting as a BC alum. I think the first thing is that the career search process is a process. So the steps are similar to just about every industry, right? So it's a matter of how you do those steps and what you do to create that strong foundation. So there's two main things. Obviously, the first is your resume. So that needs to be tight. Your LinkedIn needs to be optimized, maximized. There's so much that LinkedIn can do that I don't think most people even realize. So even people who think they have the best profile, there's just so many different layers of how to utilize that profile and get it noticed. You've got to have a great elevator pitch, be practiced and ready for that. And, know how to communicate your story, which I'm sure we're going to talk about tonight. It's just all about building that story and knowing it authentically. So, how have you made an impact? And that needs to be on your resume. So have a positive social media footprint. Is it consistent and positive? Really take a good hard look at that. I'm a big Twitter fan. Follow Twitter, open a Twitter account. I think it's great to follow industry professionals, people you admire, personally and professionally. So I think that's a really good thing to open up and don't make it private, because the hiring managers will wonder why. The second big thing we talked, it's networking. It's such a corporate word, but it's really what you should be focusing on right now because I'm guessing most people listening have tightened up those other pieces, but this is really something that you just, don't be intimidated by. LinkedIn says that 70-80% of jobs are found through personal connections. And that's a huge number. But they did a study that said that 50% or 51% of millennials don't feel comfortable reaching out to people. And like 40% just skip the step altogether because of it. So that's a good thing for people who do network because the less competition, but it's really something you need to do. So get comfortable speaking to strangers, you know, you need a team in your corner, you know, and this, by the way, is the best time in your life to ask for advice because everybody likes to give help, you know, advice to a young new grad. So take advantage of this time. And, you know, I think also just one note on the BC piece is that, you know, your liberal arts degree will serve you well and make you more marketable. I really believe that. I think that and you should think about this when you're building your resume, that your, you know, critical thinking skills and your judgment, and those are the capabilities that I think really will set you apart and make you marketable. So, I mean, obviously you have to figure out how to connect these things and put them on paper. And this is what we work with candidates a lot on, but I think those are the main answers. It's a big question, so.
Right. Yeah. And on the networking piece, I mean, I understand where people come from, where they feel like there's a sort of apprehension toward networking because you feel like you're like asking somebody for a favor, right? When you send that LinkedIn message, you know, you're asking somebody for their time, and time is very valuable for different people. So, I mean, what would you suggest in terms of networking? What's the most important thing to do, especially, you know, when you have that LinkedIn connection request, you have 150 characters, right? What do you put in that message? How do you grab somebody's attention and get them on the phone with you so you can have that conversation?
Well, I think when you networking, there's a lot of different ways that you can network. You know, LinkedIn is a very valuable resource to network because you really want to be able to convey the reason why you're networking with them. So many people just ask for 15 minutes of their time, but there's a reason why you're doing that. So what Karen was talking about in terms of your elevator pitch, what you're bringing to the table, why you feel it's important for you to be able to connect with this person based on the company, the industry you're interested in, a position that you might be interested in. So it's important to make sure you create that synergy and that connection between the person that you're connecting with and the reason why you want to have a conversation with them. But you can do that through LinkedIn. You can do that through email. It's a funny world we're living in because you can't say to someone, oh, can I have 15, you know, go take you out for coffee. We can't take people out for coffee anymore. So one of the things that we were thinking about, what we talk to our clients about is be creative, you know, ask for a coffee break on Zoom, 15-minute coffee break on Zoom where you sit and have a conversation with that person. But most importantly, I think, it's not about that initial conversation. You can have an initial conversation with someone, but where people fall short is that after they have that conversation, then they write a nice note, key to write a note, a thank you note back to that person within 24 hours. But even more importantly, you've got to follow up because there's so many people in the market right now that are looking for jobs, both senior level people, mid-level people, and entry-level people. So the people that are going to be remembered are the people that stay top of mind. So what does that mean? What does top of mind mean? So you have a great conversation with someone that works at X industry or X company that you're very interested in. You write a great thank you note. You know, maybe 2 weeks later, maybe you had talked about, you know, a similar interest, a similar hobby you may have had. Write a note back, and maybe you found an article about, you know, maybe you're both climbers and you found an article about climbing Kilimanjaro or something like that. Send a note to them that makes that connection again. Or something else you could do is, if they're working for a company and you saw a news release, you did some research about the company or about a competitor, send a note to that person and let them know that you're continuing to stay, you know, involved with the company and want to make sure that you are, you know, as we say, your resume is staying on top of the pile. And I think that's where so many people fall short because they don't, should I really write another note or should I send another note in 2 weeks? It's okay to do that. Believe me, if you had a first good impression, the second impression will even be better. And that third impression down the road will even be better. When they do start to hire, your resume will be top of mind. That's something even as recruiters, we always recommended. If you're 3 finalists and they hadn't quite made a decision and, they're deciding between the 3 candidates, write a note to that person and send something that's relating to either the company or a personal, kind of conversation that you had that would bring you kind of to the top of, the pile, so to speak. So that's the whole networking thing that we've been talking about, is just don't network once. Make sure there's some follow-up that you continue to do so that you will be remembered when things open up in this market.
Absolutely. And networking, I feel like so many people look at it as a one-dimensional thing where you're reaching out and you're asking somebody a favor, right? It's a conversation or it's a job referral or it's something, but really networking is relationship building. And to build those relationships early on, even before you need to ask somebody a favor. But even if you're on this webinar tonight and you're a freshman or a sophomore at BC, maybe there's a company you really want to work at, right? It doesn't hurt right now to reach out to those people and say, hey, I'm a student, I'm studying this, I'm really interested in learning about more what you're doing. They know you're not asking for a job because you're too early to be asking for a job, but build those relationships now so that when you graduate BC and you're looking for that job, now you've known that person for 2 years, right? Yes. And you've done what Elyse is saying, is you're checking in with them and you're building that relationship, and that makes the network so much stronger.
The other thing is make sure you link them in. Make sure you always link in that person that you've spoken to. Very, very important. Don't forget to do that. And I think that, as you were saying, Chris, it's always okay at the end of a conversation that you have with the person to say to them, do you know anybody else that I might reach out to that would be valuable for me to make that connection? Ask them that question, because they might have 2 or 3 people that they're thinking about as you're speaking to them in that 15-minute conversation that might be, this person should really talk to so-and-so. So ask the question, because the broader the network you have, the better you will be prepared as things start to open up and your, kind of the jobs start to open again, up again in the marketplace.
Absolutely.
It's not as transactional, I think that's the key, is, to take away that sort of, you're just asking to network with someone to get a job. I think you want to take that out of it and make it more, hopefully genuinely, that you really are trying to develop relationships to help you personally, professionally, and hopefully sometimes you help them with something, and then it's a boomerang. You gotta remember it to help the ones behind you that are coming up too. So I think that's a really, it's a two-way street, as we say.
Absolutely. So I just launched a poll for our audience here tonight. And the question is, are you feeling burnt out in your job search right now? I've been hearing a lot of that from my friends and peers who are in between jobs right now. So if you want to answer, everybody who's on the call today, answer the question, are you feeling burnt out in your job search? So far, based on those who've answered, we have about 60% saying yes, they feel so burnt out right now, and 40% saying no, that they're doing just fine. For those people who answered that they're feeling burnt out right now, I completely can understand where they're coming from. Why do you think there's this feeling of burnout right now? And what solutions do you have to really beat that burnout?
Do you want me to take that, Elyse, or you want?
Sure.
So I think that, I think there's burnout because there's a lot of stress, right? It's a lot of uncertainty. And I think it's scary to face this uncertainty for everybody at all levels. So I think what's important is, number one, is stay organized. And if you're an organized person, great. Step it up a little bit, maybe more. But if you're not, create some structure to your day and set goals for each day for short and long term. So day goals, week goals, month. Make some short term, I like to tell people to maybe even make a little bit of a 6, 12, 18-month goal plan for different scenarios that could be, just to get a little bit in control. And, a day for researching companies, a day for networking, a day for practicing your interview skills, follow-up. Or maybe you do a little bit of that each day, but it's okay to take a break, take a walk, go do something. And I think, keeping yourself healthy, obviously. There's obvious things that we all know, but you really sometimes have to remind yourself of these things. But I think that's the biggest thing, is just the amount of uncertainty and feeling like right now you're banging your head against the wall because you're sending a lot of, resumes out, and it's going into black holes maybe. And, it'll always go back to the networking piece. So, but also I would say quality versus quantity right now. So try to find the companies, not the roles, but the companies that interest you, and focus on those start them as the top of a mountain, and then go down. Look, where can I find back door, side doors into that company through networking? And I just read something in the Atlantic, so I'm going to try to remember how he said it, but it was an article about this time, and it said that we need to recalibrate our relationship with uncertainty right now, all of us. And just to remember that other people have been here before us in this position, maybe not exactly this, but that, don't forget to take time to take care of yourself and balance this situation, because, we need to find joy in places too. So I thought that was important to remember.
The other thing that Karen and I were talking about too, and we're recommending, and we've seen quite a few people do these kinds of things while they're looking for a job, and they may have their internship rescinded, or they didn't get the job offer they thought they were going to get because of COVID and the pandemic. But some of the things that we think it's really important to continue to kind of grow from an intellectual standpoint or from a soft skill set standpoint. So there's things that we think you can do to not only kind of take a break from looking for a job day in and day out, but do something like volunteer. We've had some people do some really cool things. Like there's someone that she wanted to get into marketing, social media marketing. So what she did was she went to a local store that obviously all these stores were closed. And she said, you know what, I can make your store come alive on Instagram and create Instagram stories where, I get some of my friends who can be models, and we can show off your goods and your wares and your clothes. And we can offer the opportunity for people to, for us to package these clothes. They can try them on. If they don't want them, they can send them back, or if they want them, they can sell them. And they created a whole new audience for this particular store of young millennials that they didn't have before. And their actual sales stayed somewhat consistent during that pandemic. And that's something that you can utilize for your, on your resume. Like what have you done during this really uncertain time where you've been able to continue to grow, use some of your skills, and been very creative and you've kind of been adapted to a situation that isn't easy. And I think companies will really appreciate people that kind of have taken advantage of certain types of, taken advantage of the situation in a positive way and done some unique things. Someone else that started a jewelry business, she was in the high-end travel business, and she got laid off. And what she decided to do was kind of start this little jewelry business. It's become so incredibly successful. She's, posts everything on Instagram and Facebook, and she's on Etsy, and she has made like $10,000 this summer selling these like $25 bracelets. But those kinds of things, when she goes to look for a job, she might not want to stay in jewelry making, but what she can use is really be able to communicate what she's been able to do as, kind of leadership, creativity, being able to market her brands on social media, and how successful, quantifying the success that she had. So when she goes and talks to these companies, they'll look at her and say, wow, she took advantage of this time in a very positive way. So, those kinds of things can certainly benefit you when you're kind of moving into the market and starting to interview and talking about what you what you did during this kind of uncertain time, and how that really will benefit the company that you're interviewing with. Yep. So that's another thought that we think is really important, because that will make you stand out. And that will make your resume kind of rise to the top of the pile, because there are people that aren't doing any of that right now. And if you do something that's unique, you will be recognized. You know, I was thinking about, I did a lot of work for Google in the very beginning. When Google launched, I did a lot of recruiting for them. And one of the things that was so important to them was not so much that you graduated from a great school, and they had, at that point there was like 100 schools that they would look at. I mean, and those are really the only colleges and universities that they would hire from. But even more importantly than that, they wanted on these resumes, these folks that were going to work for Google, they wanted to see something unique about who they were and what they did as a person. So whether, it's, president of the debating club at your college, and, whether or not you were in competition with other schools, and, whatever, climbing Kilimanjaro, was one of my candidates actually climbed Kilimanjaro, and they loved the fact that this person took the initiative to train and climb Kilimanjaro. So they would look beyond just the university, and if you did something very unique and interesting, your resume would definitely go to the top of the pile. So just a thought in terms of things you can do while we're all in this very uncertain time.
Yeah,
that helps.
I have just launched another poll for everybody. This is the second and last poll of the night, which is, what area do you feel like you need the most coaching in? Now, you might be somebody who feels like, I don't need coaching in any of this, but pick one. What do you think that you could work on most, or what skill could you sharpen most out of the options that I've given? I've given resume, cover letter, networking, interview prep, or discovering your personal strengths and identifying what kind of career path is best for you. I'm gonna leave that open for a minute. But I also wanna ask, again, we're in a very strange time right now. As we've talked about, people's offers have been rescinded, internships have been canceled. Maybe somebody doesn't have that kind of entrepreneurial bug in them to go and sell their own jewelry, but they're really passionate about surfing, or they really want to pick up a new language, or they want to build, a wooden fence around their house with their parents. And it's a project they've been, pushing off for years. Now they're going to finally build the fence because now they have the time to do it, right? For those people who are doing something that maybe is non-traditional or not quote unquote professional, how can you take that experience and really use that to best position yourself for that next job that you're applying to?
I think it's a great question. And I think there's so many ways that you can articulate the value that you bring to the table based upon what you've done, whether it is taking a course and learning a new language. That certainly takes initiative, that certainly shows creativity, that certainly shows that you're motivated. And all of those soft skills that you bring to the table, you can communicate to a future employer. So I love the fact of building a fence. I mean, think about it, building a fence around your yard. What a great idea. And, you think it sounds silly, like, wow, I build a fence. That's not an easy thing to do, So I think there's ways in which you can, what was tough about, you look at what you've done, how you accomplished it, and then you're able to communicate that to someone who's interviewing you for a job. But I love all those ideas, Chris, because, maybe you took a course to be a yoga instructor, you found peace in doing that. And that's a hard thing to do. You had to go through hours and hours of training, but you did that while you were, during the COVID and during the pandemic. So there's so many ways that you can actually, take advantage of those things that you've done and turn them into assets when you sit and interview with a potential employer. So, soft skills are key. Soft skills are key.
Yeah, and I was going to just add to that. I mean, people want to know. I think maybe the resume format may change because of this. I think that it's going to be acceptable to put on your resume. And, if you're wondering how to actually articulate it in what format, I think you're going to be able to communicate it, obviously in a conversation, but also on your resume. I think it's okay if your internship was rescinded and you went through the whole process of getting that that internship. And I think that's something that I hear a lot of, we've talked to a lot of career coaches in this business and hiring managers, that it's going to be very acceptable to have that on your resume, that you were selected to the program and somehow reflected, that process.
How do you phrase that on your resume? Like, how would you actually physically write that out?
I think I would put just like it was a job, the company name,
Yep.
Summer 2020, and you could say the position, marketing intern, and then maybe a bullet that, selected to the highly competitive internship program in the marketing department of Nike or whatever it is, and just say, and maybe I'd have to play around it, but maybe in italicized sort of next to the date, or just say, or a bullet, just say, rescinded due to COVID. I don't know exactly how it's going to be said, but I think actually putting it on there as if it is an experience that just being selected, I think, is an honor and an accomplishment. But also maybe there's a section on your resume that is COVID experiences. I don't know, but, and it could be, kind of what I did during COVID times. I developed these skills, and maybe it's based around the skills. And then you talk about the activities or the experiences you did that supported and developed those skills.
Yeah, I think COVID can I think you absolutely should put your internship was rescinded or the job was taken, rescinded. I think it absolutely should be on your resume. Because, listen, you got the job and no one can control COVID and no one can control what was going on. And, it's an honor to be offered an internship, and it's an honor to be offered a job. And through nothing that we've done, COVID came along and they couldn't hire. So I would absolutely put that on your resume. Absolutely.
Yep. And it's funny, Amanda just asked in the chat a few moments ago, how do you suggest sharing this unique experience on a resume or in an interview? So for the resume piece, you said maybe the way the resume will look will change. You might have what happened during COVID, right? And I took a HubSpot certification class. I built a fence, right? And maybe there's a bullet point or line under it that says what you learned from that. What were the results? I think that's another interesting thing about resumes, that like sometimes students send me their resumes. I don't know why, maybe they think I'm like the career center, but they send me their resumes because they know I'm like in touch with a lot of people in media communications. Like, what do you think people will think of this resume? And the one thing that I find missing is that they don't show their tangible results. They might say, I managed social media, I did X, Y, and Z tasks, but what they don't say is how many posts they made, by what percent the followers grew, right? What those tangible results were. I'm sure that's something you tell your clients all the time. Is, can you quantify, right? Can you quantify what those things are? Because I feel like that's the biggest strength that you can have on a resume. I want to quickly just go to the poll. Our poll from before was, what area do you feel like you might need the most coaching in? And the one that people feel like they need the most coaching in is discovering their personal strengths and identifying their career paths. So it's not really not really resume cover letter or interview prep. It seems to be more that people are still trying to figure out what are their strengths, what are they interested in, and how does that translate to an entry-level job, right? Or that first job or that internship, right? How do you align what you're interested in with a professional experience, right? So I don't know if there's anything you want to say to that. I'm sure that's something you do when you coach your clients as well, right?
Yeah, it is. And I think, I could quickly also respond, it could be networking, because part of the networking process is discovering new industries or new roles and really understanding what something's about to see if it's what you want to do. So is the culture fit? I think that's probably the biggest thing that I feel like kids who had internships this summer, or young people that had internships, I think that's the biggest thing that they miss, is the culture fit from both sides. Because the company, put you through a process to hire you and select you for that job or that internship. They want to see what you're like to fit into the company, and see if you show up on time, if you're easy to work with, you are collaborative, you can, et cetera. But so you're missing that with the pandemic. But I think having conversations with as many people as you can will help you discover if it's something is the right path for you. I mean, there's also, we do a lot of Q&A with clients to ask them and dig into what really what makes them tick, and what's going to make them, what's worked in the past, even with, summer jobs you had, what are you all about, and what kind of path. And there's also professional testing that you can do, and things like that. So those are all something a career coach would help you do. But I don't give up on the simple fact of networking, because I think that's an important element to discovery.
And the other thing too is sometimes you do get your first job and you don't love it. You think you're going to go down a certain path, and you get to a company and, it's not exactly what you want to do, and one of the things that it's important that you give it some tenureship, because you don't want to look like a person that jumps and jumps and jumps jobs. But if you get to a company and you're there and you say, God, this just isn't what I want to do. And I think when you realize what you don't want to do, sometimes it leads you down the path of what you do want to do. So, and it's okay. It's really okay if you don't love what you do your first time. It might take you a couple of years to figure it out. And you know what? It's okay to shift gears and take an alternate career path. And we see it all the time in recruiting. We saw it all the time. So don't be afraid, to take a job, and it's okay if you don't love it. You think you're going to love it, you think it's the right job, and you think it's the right company, and then you get there and it's just like there isn't a fit, whether it's not a right culture fit, and all of a sudden you're like in a very type A environment where they expect you to like be in at 8:30 in the morning, and you can't clock out until 6:30 at night. And, it's just not the kind of environment you like. And maybe that allows you to know that, hey, I want to be in a more relaxed environment where I can create my own structure and my own processes. So taking a job because you think you're going to love it and then you don't love it, don't get discouraged, because it's not set in stone, and it's not the only job you're going to have in your career, and it might help guide you in another direction.
Well, and the reality is, I think most people probably didn't love their first entry level job. So the other side of that is, don't jump because you don't love it, because, you'll know if it's not right, if it's not the right career path. But it could be that entry level jobs can be sort of, menial, and not feeling like you have enough. You've got this great Boston College education, and you're like, what am I doing? But that's another side of it. So
I know exactly. Yeah, I know exactly what that's like. And that's to speak to the students who are in attendance who took that internship last summer. You're looking at an internship description, you're kind of like, this doesn't really seem like it's that much experience. When I graduated school, my first job I ever got was in TV production. And, prior to that, I was at BC. I was in classes talking about television and representation in media, and, being asked what I think about these things. And then I was in a TV production job, and my job was to move boxes from A to B. Nobody cared what I thought, right? So that was very jarring for me at first, to be like, this isn't what I expected it to be. But when you look at the other people there, you realize that sometimes for certain, industries, you got to put some dues in, right? There's not, the entry level job isn't exactly what you think it's going to be, but it gives you really great experience. And most importantly, it gives you the opportunity to meet people and build those relationships. Yep. So say you're in TV production. If you're that type of person, I went right up to the director. I went right up to the producer. I said, hi, I'm Chris Russo. And I started building those relationships, and they see that you're hustling. And if you just have a positive can-do attitude, in my experience, that sets you apart. And I think when you build those relationships, that can lead to success. We have about 5 minutes left. So I want to just move a little quickly through a couple more things I want to touch on. We have a question from somebody in the audience who's asking, compared to hard skills, soft skills like critical thinking and judgment skills, they're useful, but they're harder to market toward potential employers. What's the best way to market the value of a liberal arts education in a talent pool seemingly dominated by STEM and business majors?
That's interesting.
I think back to what I was saying before. I think that it's, your ability to write, number one. I think you've just got that full slate of capabilities. So you have the ability to critically think, you've got judgment, you've got a sense of purpose in the world, especially, your Jesuit philosophy being the foundation underneath all of the academics, that it makes you someone that cares about the world and has a sense of place. I think you know, I think those are things that, that set you apart from someone who, it makes you multidimensional. You know, it's not like you're a one trick pony and sure you can do that math skill or whatever it is perfectly, but are you able to have interpersonal skills and think on your feet and have that creativity? You know, are you adaptable? So if you're a multidimensional person that comes from that liberal arts type of background, you really can, you can be put anywhere in any situation probably, and you're going to figure it out because you can communicate and you know how to ask questions. You're inquisitive. You can be persuasive. All of those pieces make you so much more interesting. I think any company is going to want that. So I don't know if I answered that exactly correctly, but I think that if anything, it's the multidimensionality of a liberal arts grad versus a STEM grad. Now, you know, if there's a hard skill, like you say, for that STEM job, I guess that is what it is. But those STEM employees still need to work on a team and be collaborative and communicate and need to write. So, especially if you're going to manage people at some point, I think you're much better equipped.
You know, a lot of job descriptions, if you look at job descriptions, you'll see that they incorporate soft skills in their job description. So when you look at a job description and you're interviewing for a job, there's ways in which you can integrate your experiences and your capabilities based on your quote unquote soft skills as it relates to the job. So, you know, collaboration, teamwork, those are things that are so valuable to companies today, especially the way the new normal is going to be. So if you're able to communicate those types of skills that you've acquired through education and extracurricular activities that you've done or clubs that you've joined and that kind of thing, teams that you've been parts of, those are things I'm telling you make you very, very marketable in today's world. It's all about how you position yourself as it relates to the job and their work around the soft skills and how and what you've done as a person to date that is pertinent and valuable based upon what they're looking for. And there will always be soft skills as part of a job description, always. Mm-hmm. It's so important in today's world. You cannot believe how many companies say, you know, we're a team here. We collaborate. It's all about culture here. And we want people that, you know, have interpersonal skills, that can turn on a dime and be flexible and adaptable. And if you've done things throughout your, you know, high school, college career that you can speak to that, it will be very, very sought after.
Absolutely. And being able to, you know, even if it's not on a resume, in your interview, say, you know, when you were in X club, you were in marketing academy of Boston College, right? The fact that you organized events and you invited a VP at Google to come and speak and you arranged the event and you gave the intro and anything that shows like interpersonal skills. Maybe you want to launch your own webinar this summer. You know, compete with B2BC, everybody. Launch your own webinar series, right? Where you're inviting friends on to talk. Launch a podcast. Like, how can you put yourself out there and build your brand? Because just circle back to what Karen said at the beginning, you said something interesting that I didn't know, which is don't leave your social media profiles private because job or employers might think that's suspect. So in other words, what you're telling us is make your social media profiles public and put good things on there.
Yes.
So that when they come across them, they're like, wow, this person is really impressive, right? So that's something interesting that I learned today. I didn't know about that. We're running out of time. Just to kind of wrap things up, if you had to give everybody here kind of an assignment, like they're waking up tomorrow and they're starting kind of a new chapter in their job search, what should they do tomorrow? What are your like key takeaways of like what should they be doing right now to really launch themselves in, pardon the pun, launch themselves into that next job or getting that next interview?
Well, I think that's a really good question. And I think it's all about understanding or having some idea of what you want to do. Where do you want to take your career? What do you want to do professionally? And then really research and network around those types of industries or those specific types of jobs. And I really believe that the people will be very open to having you as a student, a graduate just graduated, or a student that's looking for an internship, or someone that's a couple years out of school. Make a connection on LinkedIn, tell them a little bit about yourself and say, I'd love to take 15 minutes of your time, because it's really about getting yourself out there and communicating your value, having your elevator pitch, kind of in play, make sure you practice it, make sure you know how you want to express yourself and communicate who you are. But the networking aspect, I'm telling you, is key right now, because if there aren't, you can't get blood from a stone. If there aren't jobs right now, there aren't jobs. But there are people still working at those companies. And when jobs open up and you've made those connections, you will be remembered. And remember, don't make the connection once after you've had a conversation. Make sure you go back 1 or 2 times after that and remind that person of who you are, the conversation that you've had, because you never know where that will lead. And then secondly, whenever you have a conversation with someone, always ask them, is there anybody else that you can think of that might be of value to me to speak with? Because that might lead you to 3 more people. So that would be my suggestion, in terms of kind of what do we do today to get our name, to get ourselves out in the market so that we will be remembered. And when things start to open up, we're top of mind.
Yeah, I agree with all that. And I think the only thing I would add is that, don't forget the people that are right, obviously, in front of you. Networking can be like, go on your phone, wake up tomorrow, go on your phone and look through your contact lists and just jog your memory a little bit and say, who could I reach out to that I already have their email, I already have their cell phone to send them a text. There's probably so many people that you're just forgetting about. You just go through them and go through your Facebook, just to go through your social media and say to yourself, who are the obvious ones? And just get a pen and paper and write down 20 names and prioritize them and say, I'm going to reach out to these people and send them my resume with a quick note. And it could be, just don't forget those people. That it could be classmates. It could be somebody that graduated a year in front of you, or someone whose sister or brother works at a company. But don't, start with the real simple, obvious ones in front of you. I think that's what I would say.
Yeah, you just have to put yourself out there. You've got to be, if you're not comfortable with it, you've got to get comfortable with it, because unless you put yourself out there and you're saying, I'm looking for opportunities, or I'm open to having conversations about opportunities, people won't know, right? And so to even send your resume out there just to some friends or some family or whoever might be on LinkedIn is something that's really useful. And I think will serve a lot of people well. Speaking of networking, that's a perfect segue into an event that I'm actually hosting on Tuesday through the BC Media Alumni Network called Let Your Network Work for You. I just pasted the link in the chat for anybody who's on now that wants to register and join. Next week, I'm doing an event with another BC guy, Arya Murthy, who just graduated back in May. And we're doing a whole event about how do you network and what does that look like, and how do you stand out kind of in a sea of sameness? There's a lot of people, a lot of competition. When you're networking with people, how do you stand out? And we're spending a full 40 minutes just talking about networking. So that should be really exciting. I hope you can join us for that. Thank you, Karen and Elyse, so much for joining us tonight. I really appreciate it. Where can everybody find you online if they want to follow up and ask you, more questions? Where can they find you?
So maybe we'll post our website in the chat. Is that possible?
Yep. I just put it in there again. Yep. So they have that.
And I'll put it in. So it's launchcareerstrategies.com. And so you can reach both of us through there. There's a button to reach us. And if there are other questions, I'm realizing some of the questions maybe in the chat didn't get answered. Feel free to shoot us a note, and happy to answer any questions offline. Just for free, obviously. But I, just would be happy to connect with anyone, and any questions that come up that didn't get answered, happy to circle back. So thank you so much. Really nice. And good luck to everyone out there. I, wish everyone luck and stay positive. And you got to have some grit right now. So find
grit,
it.
As you say, grit and grace.
Grit and grace. Yes.
Grit and grace. But Chris, thank you so much for putting this together. I think I hope you guys feel encouraged. It's a tough time for everybody, but you've gone to a phenomenal school, and I think that if you really take it upon yourself to really feel confident in doing some of the things that you may feel a little leery about, it will work out in spades for you. It really will. It will make a huge difference in terms of your recognition as you move forward.
Right. Grit and grace. All right. That's my takeaway from today. Thank you both so much for your time. Really appreciate it. Everybody go check out Launch Career Strategies and hit up Karen and Elyse or myself if you have any other questions after tonight. And thank you everybody so much for joining us. Have a great rest of your week. Bye everybody.
Bye guys.
Thank you.